Folks, welcome back to So Bad It's Good. Today we are stepping into the ring with a true daytime legend. From keeping the peace in the wildest days of the Jerry Springer Show to hosting nearly 2 decades of his own powerhouse program, he's broken up brawls, he's stared down cheaters, and delivered lie detector results that left jaws on the floor. He's a Marine, a former Chicago cop, a husband, a son, a father, and the man who turned Take a Seat into an art form. Please welcome from the Steve Wilkos Show, Steve Wilkos. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I was telling the audience when I spent a year in Chicago working, and my buddy didn't have cable, and we would just watch Jerry Springer Show at night. And it was that meant so much to me, that hour of television programming. And I just think all of these years later, I mean, does it blow you away having your own show just entering its 19th season, how much you've meant to people over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you the impact that Springer had that, I haven't been on the Springer Show in almost 20 years. And I got to admit, I think more people remember me from the Springer Show than my own show.
Well, I mean, that was a piece of it was like a pop culture moment in time. Like it really kind of took off. Nobody had seen that done before. But what the audience, I think a lot of them knows, they're still fans of yours. You were able to build on that, and you are one of the top daytime syndicated shows. I mean, nobody else has done it for this long. I mean, you are one of the last standing bastions of these types of shows, and I think it's so important. I mean, do you ever spend time to reflect on that?
I mean, I wake up every day and I'm like, how did I get here? And I'm loving it. Yeah, what is considered conflict talk, the Ricky Lakes, the Jenny Jones, Jerry Springer, Geraldo, Maury, myself, I'm probably the last of the Mohicans with, there's not, all the shows that are coming out now are all celebrity driven or,
Yeah.
like Jennifer Hudson, Drew, Kelly Clarkson. They're all celebrity driven. It's me and Cromwell, who took over for Maury. Yeah. So my show probably will be the last conflict show, daytime TV. And listen, TV's changing, so I don't know what's next for TV, but things seem to be changing. I think that because I am kind of one of the last ones, we premiered Monday. We got the number today. It was super exciting to see that number. It was very good. So yeah, people are still tuning into the show after 19 years. I think our show's like wine. It just keeps getting better and better as time goes on.
That's the thing, is that I think people, sometimes we don't want things to change. Sometimes we want something that we can rely on. We want somebody like you that we're like, we have grown up with you. We trust you. There are only so many people that have been with us for this, a period of time that we can actually trust. Now, to tell the audience, and I know you're probably so sick of talking about your origin story, but you were a Marine. You started off as a Chicago police officer. And how did you get involved with Jerry to begin with?
Well, so when I was working as a Chicago policeman, the Springer Show once in a while would do, some type of show where they felt like they needed extra security. So they would call Pinkerton, and a lot of us police officers would work for Pinkerton on off duty. And so some of the guys that were working for Pinkerton, one day this was in 1994, they needed an extra guy to fill in. And one of the guys asked me to do it. I did. I went there. I was going to be there for one day. This was February of 1994. And so I went. I made my money. I thought, okay, that's it. That was great. Well, then they would call me back. They would use me for other shows. And the guy who was running security ended up getting fired. I was there. They asked me if I'd run security for the show. I said, yeah. And then they wanted me full time. They said, we're going to bring you on full time with the show. I said, great, man, this is a great gig. And then my role kept increasing on the show when the show took the turn where they changed the format of the show. They went young, they went love triangles. And then there was other things, like they asked me to shave my head.
Well,
you
that's
know,
what I was reading about you, and it was like they literally asked you, and you said, you're a Marine, you
yeah, my hair
super
was really
tight.
short.
Yeah, but they asked you, they wanted you to shave your head for TV, and you were like,
And
"Yeah, why not?" And I thought that's crazy because we so identify you as like, this bald-headed strong man, and that was like they suggested you to do that. I thought that's
yeah.
wild.
So, listen, I did whatever they asked because I felt very fortunate to be in the position I was in, and I knew this was a good gig. So, I was a team player, man. They said, "Hey, shave your head." I was like, "Yeah, what the hell? Why not?" And it did. My popularity on the show kind of exploded. And this was back before the internet was really a thing,
Yeah.
and people still wrote letters, right? And remember the show the movie 34th Miracle on 34th Street, and
Yeah, yeah, totally.
he's writing letters to Santa, and they're dragging all the bags of letters into the court. That's how it was with me, man. They were bringing bulk mail in, and it was just a crazy time, and it just like the show exploded. My popularity on the show exploded, and
Yeah.
those were some crazy times, man.
Well, I mean, so you're suggesting that I do need to shave my hair.
No, you got a nice head of hair. I didn't have
I
that kind of hair, so you're not asking someone with a nice head of hair to shave their head.
I was saying this the other day on the show, is that life is so unpredictable. You can never predict really anything. You kind of make hopes and wishes and dreams. But I would imagine when you're a Marine and a Chicago cop, you're not thinking at the back of your head, someday I'm going to be on television and I'm going to be hosting a show. What was your dream growing up?
Well, I grew up right down the street from Wrigley Field in Chicago, so I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player, and I played baseball all through high school and a little bit in the Marines. Once I got in the Marines, I knew that dream was over, but, I wanted to be a baseball player, and, and then when I realized, that wasn't gonna happen, I had to think like, "Oh, what am I gonna do with my life?" And, my dad was like, "Hey," I hung around with some guys that probably weren't, the most not guys I probably shouldn't have been hanging around with. My dad goes, "Hey, you're gonna be a bum like all," because my dad was an army guy. He was in the Korean War. He was a paratrooper. He was a cop, and he said, "Hey, you're gonna be a bum like your friends, hanging around the corner." And so I remember, like at school, they had, senior day or whatever, career
Yeah.
day, and I saw this Marine, and man, he was built like a brick wall, and he had his dress blue uniform on. And I went up to him and I started talking about the Marines, and I wanted that uniform, really. That's what I wanted. So uh, I said, I'm going to join the Marines right after high school. And I spent 6 years in there. I got out. I was a policeman. And, my dad was a retired policeman. He did it for 30 years. And that's what my plan was. And I'd have been happy doing it. I'd love being a cop. But, I got into TV. And once I got my foot in the door in the money I was making, I knew that was and then I met my wife on the show, and it was funny because my wife didn't really, she's a good person, and she never had involvement with law enforcement. So I would come home, my uniform would be covered in blood, like we had to fight somebody and
Yeah.
someone I had blood all over me. And she couldn't understand that. She's like, "People fight the police?" I'm like, "Yeah, like all the time." So we got to the point where we got married because she was a producer on the show. And she said, "Listen, I came home one time and my uniform was soaked in blood." And she said, "You need to quit that job," after we got married. And she said, "Listen, I'm a producer. When the Springer show's over, we're going to move to LA or New York anyways. And I'm going to be staying at TV, and then you figure out what you want to do." I said, "Yeah, you're probably right." So I left the police department and I said, "Well, I'm going to ride Springer out till it dies." And we thought we'd be moving to LA, New York. Well, we eventually did move right outside New York, but we didn't know that I'd have my own show and I'd be moving.
Yeah.
So it all worked out really well.
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. I mean, she's the executive producer of your show too, right?
Yeah, she ran the Springer show and my show for years. And then as our kids got older, my wife wanted to spend more time with our kids. So she went and talked to Jerry and said, "Hey, I'm going to be leaving the show. I'm just going to do Steve's." And I don't think he was too happy, but he understood. And so for the last almost 10 years now, she's just been doing my show.
Yeah, I mean, and this kind of success, like I said, it just really doesn't happen in the era of streaming and things like that. I mean, it's just such a feat, and you're going to be having a 20th season next season, hopefully. You just like there's just a few amount of broadcasters that actually hit that milestone. And if you were to get a 20th season, have you already thought in your head? Because I was reading about you and how you prepare, and I think one of the great things about you is they can throw you into any situation, and you kind of react from the gut and you're
Yeah.
no nonsense and you say how you feel and people trust you. But do you have any kind of like, oh, if we did hit a 20th season, this is what we'd like to, because your stories are, I mean, there's some really intense things. But is there something in your head, if you got that 20th season, that you would want to highlight?
No, I talk about this a lot. I think shows get into a really bad territory when executive producers want to be the talent and when the talent wants to produce. I've seen that all too often. I've seen a lot of executive producers who resent the host because they think, "Oh, I can do that. I should be the star of the show." And then they implement themselves in the show. My wife never wants to be on camera. Like she doesn't want, and she doesn't want to be the host. She doesn't resent me, and I stay out of the production. I don't go to them and say we should do it this way or we should do this. I say you tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. So that's I think makes our
Yeah.
show work really well because I stay in my lane, my wife stays in her lane, and it works. So you're asking me what we're going to do for 20th year? You'd have to ask my wife.
Yeah, whatever she wants, you're going to do, which is actually happy wife, happy life. So that
Well,
actually
and
means
it's
something.
because she knows what she's doing. There was
Yeah.
times when we were doing a show and I go, I don't want to do this. I think it stinks. I don't think it's going to work. And it worked. And so now I know, keep your mouth shut. Just do what she tells you to do.
Yeah, that's right. You're the talent.
Right.
Going back to when you were a police officer and you were saying I'd come home and my wife, you'd be bloody and stuff like that, is that I wanted to let the audience know, even when you started off on Springer, you were still working as a cop for the first little bit, right?
I started on Springer in 94 and I came out of the police department in 1990. So from 94 until I left the police department in 2001, from 94 to 2001, I worked as a policeman and working on a Jerry Springer show.
God, so you were keeping both of those things up and you were a very recognizable person. So I just can't imagine, I'm getting arrested and I'm like, is this Steve from the Jerry Springer show?
It's funny. I was going to go on furlough and it was like January and I was working 99, which meant I was working by myself. And I worked the 4 to 12 shift and one of my partners was off. So I was working by myself. And I remember it was probably like I'd get off at midnight and I remember it was like 11:45 and I see this car loaded with gangbangers and it's got no plate on it. It's got tinted out windows. And I was like, just let it go. Just let it go. But I wasn't in me, man. I couldn't let things go. So I pulled the car over and I'm by myself. And there's like 5 guys in the car. I had a 357 Magnum. I pull it out. I grab the driver out of the car and I stick my gun in his ribs. And I'm like, don't move. And he goes, hey, it's Steve.
Oh my
I'm like,
God.
you
And
got
and now's time for Jerry's final thoughts. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, oh my God.
Yeah, and they were like all these gangbangers. They were happy, like I'm arresting these guys, and I got a gun in his ribs. And the guy couldn't have been more happy.
Wow, you're actually doing a good service right there. I mean, that is insane. But
Yeah.
like to the audience that weren't there for like the height of Jerry Springer popularity. I mean, there's a Netflix documentary that you guys should watch that might give you a little bit of a taste of the success. But people were throwing chairs, people were going insane, and I imagine coming from the background that you came on, like me watching it at home, I'd never seen anything like it. But for you, what was that? Was that just, that's life?
I would go into apartments, for domestic violence situations, and things would go up in air. People are just throwing, wrecking the apartment, and neighbors running. We're fighting everybody. So, I grew up in Chicago in the 60s and 70s. It was kind of tough neighborhood. So we were fighting all the time. We were knuckleheads. I went into Marines. Everybody's filled with testosterone. You're fighting all the time. So that was basically my life anyway. So, being on a show that was fighting, I'm like, yeah, this is right up my alley. So not too much of a change.
Was there ever a one moment on the Springer Show and one moment on your show that you're like, I can't believe I'm seeing this right now, even with the life that you had led?
I mean, there was probably a million times I thought that. I mean, it's just, in the Springer Show, there was a lot of nudity and like
Yeah.
crazy stuff happening on stage. And, somebody on TikTok sent me a clip of a girl eating whipped cream or some kind of white stuff off my feet on the Springer Show. I would have never remembered that in a million years. I don't remember that happening. And
That was just a Tuesday. That
yeah,
was
they
just a
sent me a
Tuesday.
clip of that, and I'm like, I know that's neat, but I don't remember that happening. So that's like I'm saying, there was a million crazy things that happened that I don't even remember anymore.
So they were giving you even like they gave you your own segments. They were really like, and I was, you come off as such a kind of a strong guy. Did you ever, when you're on TV, was there ever any sort of nerves?
Not
In the
when I
beginning?
was doing security. When I got nervous was when they said, "You're gonna start hosting shows." That's
That's
when
what
I
I
was
meant.
nervous.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've never had any thought of being a talk show host or, leading segments of the Jerry Springer Show. So when that first started coming around, I started getting nervous. But as far as like breaking up the fights, running the show on,
That's
running
normal.
the stage, that was just I've was always felt comfortable.
Um, so I don't know if this is true, but I was reading is that Jerry Springer's going along, going great. Jerry Springer goes and does Dancing with the Stars, and they all of a sudden say, "Hey, why don't you host?" Is that how the story goes?
Yeah, what they figured maybe he was going to be gone for a week. They thought he'd be the first one voted off. So NBC was like, sure, he can go on it. But then what they didn't want to do was shut the production of the show down because we were obligated to deliver on these episodes, new episodes. So they said, well, when Jerry's away, you're going to host the show. And it was kind of an interesting time because I said, okay, well, what are you going to pay me to do that? And they were like, oh, but we're not paying you anything. And I go, well, no. So we got to a point where, I was making a little extra money when I hosted the show. And then I was really nervous. I remember like, oh, that first show I hosted, I must have been terrible. But, you just do it. And I got more comfortable. And then Jerry ended up doing 7 weeks, I believe. It was like 7 weeks on Dancing with Stars. Well, we used to tape 6 shows a week on Springer. So 7 times 6 is 42. So,
Oh my God.
I ended up hosting 42 shows or right around there, and they rated all well. Well, then the next year, Jerry kind of figured, hey, Steve, I'm going to take Monday off. You get paid a little more money, and I'm going to take an extra day off. And so it was a nice working arrangement the following season because I would make more money. Jerry would only work 2 days a week. Well, then those, they saw something there. Hey, these shows are rating well, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't take a genius to say, hey, this guy's hosting shows and they're rating well. Let's give him his own show. And I remember in January of 2007, it was right after Christmas and my kids were really small and they were in bed. It was like 10 o'clock at night. I remember I was watching an episode of All in the Family and I had a little vodka.
Wait. You're watching a rerun. You guys, All in the Family was a huge sitcom in the 1970s that was like groundbreaking. So
Yeah.
would that be a normal thing for you? You'd go back and watch like Nick at Night or something?
Well, like I said, my kids were sleeping. My wife went to bed. So I'm having a little vodka tonic at the time when I drank. And my phone rings and, I see it's like an NBC number. And I answer the phone. It's like some NBC executive, I thought. And he's like, oh, we're giving you your own show this fall. And I'm like, who is this, man? I thought it was somebody messing around with me, And he's like, no, you're going to have a show this fall. So, we'll talk next week, blah, blah, blah. So I went upstairs and I woke my wife up and I said, they just called me, told me I'm giving my own show. And she's like, are you drunk? And I'm like, no. I mean, I might be, but I think
yeah, a little bit. Yeah. That's an insane call to get at 10:30 at night, I would imagine. And I can understand why you would think it would be a prank. But it's, I was thinking about that in your career and I was like, that's kind of an obvious choice because you were road tested at that point. You had already dealt with the insanity of the Springer Show. Then you work your way into the actual hosting of the show with Jerry's approval. And it reminded me of The Tonight Show when John Johnny Carson started letting Jay Leno come in there. And you
Yeah.
had no ambition. You weren't trying to cut Jerry off or anything like that. When they gave you this show, what was the conversation with Jerry like?
Well, it wasn't really with Jerry, but, Jerry found out.
Yeah.
And, he wished me well. And it was hard for me because, in that time frame, uh, shows were being launched all the time. Many more shows would get launched every fall than there is now. Very few shows get launched now. But back then, a lot would get launched and they would all fail. And I was like, man, I'm jumping off a speeding train here. Like, do I want my own show? Like, I got it good here. I got no pressure on me. I'm
Yeah.
making a lot of money, but obviously it's an opportunity you're not going to turn down. And I also knew I had a secret weapon with my wife. Like, she's a great producer, and I knew, she was going to come aboard, and we'd figure things out, and we managed to do it.
Yeah, and now we're here 19 seasons later. Now your shoot schedule, you pack a lot of shows or segments, I think, You'll film like a couple days a week when you're
We
actually
film
in
2 days a week, and the reason why people say, "Oh, you only filmed that 2 days a week." Well, when we first moved to Connecticut, me and Jerry, they moved the shows to Connecticut, and they brought Maury from New York. I was 2 days, Jerry was 2 days, Maury was 2 days, so you couldn't have more than 2 days. So you gotta pack it in, and, now Jerry, retired, and then Maury retired, and, now it's me and Caramo. During the summer, the studio has Hot Bench, gets filmed in there over the summer. So, I mean, I could probably pick up a 3rd day, but our show is so intense, and we only have
Yeah.
6 producers, so we tape anywhere from 10 to 12 to 13 stories a week.
Jeez, I mean that's just got to be so intense because
2 hard days.
I mean, the topics of your show. I was even going over the titles of this season, the first 5 episodes, and there's some really intense things. And I just wondered, after all of these years, how does that wear on your psyche?
Not too much, because when I get off stage, people are like, "Oh, I do like TikTok lives or something." And
Yeah.
people are like, "Hey, do you remember so and so?" And I'm like, "No, because I don't remember what I taped the last episode." So
I don't
I
remember my whipped cream on my foot. What are you
no,
talking about?
exactly. And I don't think about the show when I don't do the show. I never think about it. So I just turn it off.
Yeah, that's probably way for the best. But I will say, even on like social media, like you were talking about your TikTok lives, your YouTube, you can find, like, guys, compilation clips and all of that of some of the most intense, insane things that get millions and millions and millions of clicks. Like, I mean, it is just kind of insane. I don't think you probably think about your popularity ever. And it really is this perfect kind of building off of Mr. Springer. Kind of the last thing about Mr. Springer is, like, when was the last time, he unfortunately passed away a couple of years ago. Well, did you have like a last conversation with him, or what? Did you get the sense that he was really proud of you?
He called me up about a month before he was passing, and I had no idea he was sick. And he said, "Hey, I'm in town." He goes, and I was taping that day. It was a Wednesday. And he said, "I'm in town." And he was going to go, because a lot of the guys that work on my show worked on his show. And he was taking them all out to dinner. And he said, "I'd like you to come." I said, "Jerry," I go, I'm taping. I go, "I'm tired after I'm done taping. I'm just going to go home. I don't want to sit with a bunch of guys and go to dinner. I really don't want to do that." And he goes, "Oh, I really want to see you." I said, "I'll tell you what, you go to dinner. When I get done taping, I'm going to go home and rest. You shoot me a text when you're done with dinner." And John Starks, who played for the Knicks, owns a cigar lounge not like a mile from my house. So I said, "I'll tell you what, you get done with dinner, send me a text. I'll meet you for a cigar. We'll go have a cigar." So he texted me. I went and had a cigar with him. I kind of thought that he was sick or something was wrong, because he kind of was shaking a little bit. And, from what I understand later, with pancreatic cancer, like, these tumors are pressing on your nerves and you kind of shake. And I asked him about it. I said, "Jerry, are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah." He said, like, I got something, like, I don't know. He explained it, but he didn't. He's such a nice guy, and we loved each other so much. I don't think he wanted to tell me, because then I'd be thinking, oh my God, Jerry's dying. He's going to be dead in, a month or
Yeah.
two. And he didn't want to put that burden on me. So it was funny because we were sitting there smoking cigars, having a great time. And he started getting very sentimental. And that was one thing we never did. We never talked about the old days. Oh, this and that. I had a son who was, captain of the football team, captain of the baseball team. His grandson was a great athlete. And so we'd always talk about his grandson and my son in sports. He was a big Yankees fan. I'm a big Cubs fan. I'm a conservative. Jerry was liberal. We would talk about all these things. We never talked about the Springer Show. But that night, for some reason, we were going on memory lane. And, and he goes, okay, I got to go. And he got up and he got really choked up. And he's like, Steve, I love you. I said, yeah, Jerry, I love you too, and it didn't click in me, like this was going to be
Yeah.
the last time I saw him. And then a month later he passed and my wife told me, and I said, damn, man, I kind of knew something was wrong, but I didn't know he was dying. But I think he didn't want to put that burden on me.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a beautiful story in this very weird way. And I was, I think he obviously meant so much to people, and you're kind of carrying this torch, yet making it your own right now, which I think is also amazing. But what you said about, we talked about our kids, we talked about this, is that, sometimes you'll talk to these people that have meant so much to the audience, and they don't think about these projects. They think about their actual life, it's like you're thinking about your family, because this is what you do for a job, and it's awesome that all these people like it. But you have a wife, you have kids, and which, by the way, I wanted to ask your advice. We are pregnant with my first child right now, and I was like, I got to ask Steve, what's some advice for a new dad?
I'll say this: I'm jealous of you, okay?
You
Because
can come over. You can raise the kid.
I'm telling you something. There's going to be hard days, but
Right.
suck it up, man, and love it because it's over in a blink of an eye. I'm telling you, I had my daughter. My daughter was my firstborn, and we lived right next to a park in Park Ridge, Illinois. And I'll never forget, she was a little baby, and I'm pushing her around. I'm so happy. Oh my God, I got a little girl. And these old guys would come up to me and go, hey, enjoy it. It's over in a blink of an eye. And I'm like, you're crazy, man. She's a baby. She's going to be here forever. She's gone now, man. She's up in Boston. She's going to school. She's got a boyfriend, like a blink of an eye. And
Yeah.
I'll say this, when your kids are little and you're going to probably have more than one, and they say, Daddy, let's play. I don't care what you're doing. You might be working on a nuclear bomb. You might be performing heart surgery. You stop what you're doing and you play with your kids. I don't care what's going on. Anything, you stop and you spend because you're never going to get it back.
Yeah. No, I will take that to heart. Also, you had mentioned something about when you would talk to Jerry, he was liberal, you were conservative, but you'd have conversations. And my
Oh,
dad
yeah.
always says that too. He was like, oh, God, back in the day, we would disagree with each other, but it would be okay. We'd have a conversation. But now we disagree with each other, and it's like, F you, and we stop listening. And I'm not trying to be political here, but I do think there is something interesting just hearing about times that we could actually have conversations about, things that are intense. And now it seems like we really don't listen to each other at all. Would you agree with that?
Listen, when me and Jerry, and we were polar opposite, right? And we would be arguing about something, but we'd be laughing doing it, be like, you're crazy, And we never got I knew the man for 30 years. We would spend more time with each other than our wives sometimes because we were on the road together. We were on the road. We spend large amount of time together. We go to dinner, hanging out all day, doing a million interviews. So we would spend really crazy amount of time together. We never got mad at each other. He never got upset with me. I never got upset with him. There was times when he'd say something I'm like, you're out of your mind, But we were laughing about it, laughing about our differences. Now, I don't discuss politics with anybody because people get I know people that don't talk to their parents anymore because of who they voted for. I'm like, are you nuts? People won't go to Thanksgiving because you
Yeah.
voted this way and I voted that way. I'm like, people are just insane. Listen, everybody in my family, if they grew up in Chicago, they're Democrats, right? Everybody in Chicago is Democrat. I went in the military. Everybody, when you're joining the military, you're more conservative, right? You're a cop. Those professions tend to be more conservative. I'm not far right. I'm not extremism. I'm not bag. I'm not none of that.
That's how we should be. I mean, we
I'm
should
very
be talking about
moderate.
issues,
And I have over time developed views that have probably gone left of center, right? Like, I'm willing to change. Like, not even that I want to change, but if you make a good argument and you sway me, I'm not going to be stuck in my rut. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I try to be, learning all the time, and that, and I never forget this one guy in Chicago. He told me, he was kind of a famous guy in Chicago. Well, probably is famous all over America. He was a radio DJ, but he said, if you only surround yourself with people that think just like you're never going to learn anything. You'll never get an opposing view or expand your horizons. And it's so true. And being around Jerry, he would explain, and listen, man, because I wasn't a great student. Jerry was a lawyer. He went to law school. He did great. He went to Tulane. He went
He
to
was in politics, yeah.
yeah, and I barely graduated high school. So I learned a lot from Jerry. I learned like how government works. Like, I didn't even know about the electoral college until he broke it down to me. And like, I didn't know how that's how the presidency got, electoral
Yeah.
college. I didn't even know what the electoral.
But why should we know that? Like, the way we're supposed to trust our government, so we don't need to know any of that crap, so we can live our lives.
But because being around Jerry and talking all the time, I learned all these things, like, and I've always, even though I didn't continue on with my education, I read all the time. I read millions of books, millions of newspapers. Like, I'm always trying to better myself and just learn and be aware. And that was a great thing with him, because I did learn a lot, and not just about TV business or anything. And he was such a great mentor because he was so professional. He never was late for anything. He was polite to everybody. He never got upset, never yelled at people. He didn't think he was better than anybody. He was the biggest star in the world at one time. He never treated anybody different or acted differently because he was a huge star. He was just a great guy. So I don't think I ever would have got a big head because, one, I don't care about celebrity. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoy the perks of it, but when it's over, it's over. I don't care. I'm not going to try to stay relevant and do a podcast and you should do. No, man. When my show's over, I'm going to smoke cigars at my lake house and play golf, and nobody's ever going to see me again.
You can grow your hair back. Yeah, once that
I told my wife that. I said, I'm going to do the Letterman. I'm never shaving again. She goes, "Oh, you're shaving."
Oh, I will never let you do a Letterman, man. That beard, Letterman's beard, scares the crap out of me. So I mean, you deal with the everyday people that tell you these very insane stories that you go in and film the Steve Wilkos show. And do you, when you're talking to these very real people at times, do you see that we have more that we have more in common with each other than more that would tear us apart? And that kind of is into that last question as well, because I think we need to be reminded that we do have a lot of commonalities.
Listen, I think most people, a lot of people, we're very common in a lot of ways. One things that separate us, I'm talking about Americans in general. One is how you were raised, right? And I think if you were raised in a household with a mother and a father, you're way ahead of the game, right? I was fortunate. My father just passed away 6 years ago. My mother's still alive. We lived in a 2-flat in Chicago where, it was my grandmother's building. We all lived upstairs. My grandmother, my grandfather lived downstairs. My grandmother had a huge family. My dad had a big family. Our house was kind of like the central depot. Like, everybody was coming over. And then we lived on a city block in Chicago. Neighbors, everybody was like family. So I always felt we didn't have any money or anything, but I enjoyed my childhood. Like, I had tons of family and saw my grandparents every day. It was great. And everybody, like, the guy down the street could kick my ass if I was acting up, right? Like, if I was out wilding in the street, the guy down the street would kick me in my ass and say, "Hey, knock it off." You can't do that nowadays, right? Nobody could do that. But back then, anybody could do it because everybody wanted the neighborhood to be good and everybody was respectful and things like that. So I think when you have two parents in the house, you're raised differently, and it's a good thing, right? Keeps you in line. And then the other thing that's different is economics, right? Like if you start making some money and get ahead, and you find yourself in different social circles because of success. Um, but when it comes basic down to it, we all want the same thing. We want to be loved. Most people want a family. You want a house. You want to go on vacation. A lot of things are just all the same. It's just where you end up.
Yeah. Um, uh, that's so true about your kind of a head start if you have a mom and a dad getting, like totally true. A couple more things before we have to let you go. When as a host myself, or still trying to be a better host, when you go into these situations, you're going in kind of cold, the topic and all that stuff, just from your training, not just, with Jerry, of course, but as a police officer and a Marine, are there things that you do that size up the people that you're talking with and doing a segment with? Is there any kind of trick, or how do you size up a person?
There's no tricks, but it's just like being a policeman. You bring everybody in, and it's, I didn't do it, officer. I'm not guilty. And I like to tell people I was a cop for 11 and a half years. I made 1,000 arrests. I never arrested a guilty person in my life, right? Like, you know, nobody ever said I did it, but then you get them in that little room and you start talking to them. And then, you're like, hey, this is what it is, just like my show. And you break it down. And because, there's techniques. I'm not saying there's secrets. There's techniques.
Yeah.
Tell me what happened. Okay. Tell me it again. And then, then you start seeing, and they're like, oh, that's not what you said. And then you just prove that they're lying. And then you say, come on, just share the truth. And you do get that, and that's kind of the same way I did as a policeman, interviewing or interrogating people. That's what I do on my show.
Yeah. No, I mean, by the way, you guys, you can find all the syndication listings for this. And like I said, you go to YouTube, there are so many like edits and clips and all of this stuff of the insanity. You said you had 1,000 arrests, but you have over 2,200 episodes. Did you know that?
I think we're well over 2,200. We'll probably get closing in on 3,000 now.
That's insane.
It's seven. I figured out it was, what is it? It's well over every 10 years. It's like, well over 1,000 shows. So like 1,200, 24. We're probably, I mean, I want to, in my mind, because we hit 2,000 a few years ago. So we're probably up over around 2,500 now.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is that, like, I don't even think you consider yourself like where you're at. Like, it blows me away. When I got the offer, I was like, hell yeah, I want to talk to. I mean, like, you are a host, you are a broadcaster. Nobody lasts this long in this industry unless they have this innate talent. And if you watch him for a second, you guys, you will understand that. And, you can tell why. Even just talking to you right now, you're obviously a person that can talk to anyone. And, just me doing this, I always pick up on these things, or like, oh, I write this down, or this is interesting about this person. And I can see why you've lasted this long. But also you seem like a family man, which I think people are really, really attracted to and needing now more than ever. For the 20th season, even though I don't know if we're allowed to say if there is one or not, in homage to Jerry, would you do a guest spot on Dancing with the Stars? Come on, for the 20th.
Your career's over when they ask you to do Dancing with the Stars.
What are you talking about? That's not true at all.
That is true. You're on the downhill when they ask you to do that show. They're not asking anybody that's going up. That's for sure.
Okay, so that's a no. And then just since this is a pop culture show and we cover a lot of things, I know you don't like watch reality. I know you don't watch that, but you watch All in the Family 15 years ago. What do you like to watch now if you're able to watch? And you say you read a lot of books. What have you read recently?
It was on the New York Times bestseller list. It was called Evicted. And it was a really good book, because I used to be a landlord. If I wasn't going to get rich being a talk show host, I was going to rich being a property owner. And it just talks about like the struggles of people paying their rent, and and it followed a few different families and the hardships. It's a great book. And to be in somebody in my position, you read this, and maybe it makes people, contribute to like people that are struggling, some charities and stuff. It's called Evicted. If anybody wants to read a good book, it was on the New York Times bestseller list this year or last year. Great book. what I'm watching right now, we just finished watching Black Rabbit with Jason Bateman and Jude
Yeah,
Law.
is that good? It just came out
It's
last week.
great. It's great. It's limited series, so we burned right through it. We're watching the Jason Momoa.
Oh yeah, Lords of War,
Is it Lords of War?
God of War, or something on Apple TV Plus.
Yeah, that's great. We love it. I'm a big history guy, so I love things that have like historical nature to it. We're watching Slow Horses. We're watching The Morning Show just came back.
Yep.
We're watching Heritage on HBO Max, which is a Polish family, and it's spoken in Polish. It's subtitles. It's a great. I don't like subtitles a lot, but that's a great show. So we don't watch primetime TV. We don't watch late night. We don't watch any of that. We don't watch any regular TV. We're streamers like everybody else. So those are the shows that we like. Me and my wife, we
God, it seems like you actually keep up with a lot of shows. I was like, man, I got to watch
yeah.
that too.
But I don't watch
And
any reality or Dance with Stars, The Bachelor.
it's gonna. I do it all the time. It's gonna rot your brain. You don't need that. You don't need that. And then,
Well, because it's so funny when they say reality, and people say, "Is your show real?" I'm like, "It's 100% real." And when I watch these reality shows, and I know how TV works, I go, "That ain't real."
Well, I mean, back in the day on Jerry Springer, there was like kind of a blend of
Well, there was, like you get the gag, but when another guy's sleeping with another guy's wife and they're beating the crap out of each other, that was real.
Okay, that's right. And then finally, what kind of music do you like to listen to?
I'm a 60s, 70s, 80s guy. I love Led Zeppelin. I love the Stones. I love Pink Floyd. I was down working out, and when I'm weightlifting, I love Led Zeppelin, man. I get the let out. I'm pumping, man. That's
you gotta watch. I think it's called "Becoming Led Zeppelin," the
yes.
documentary.
It was at the movie theaters, and I wanted my wife to go with me. She didn't want to go with me, so I was waiting for it to come out, and I just saw it the other day that it's on Netflix, so I'm gonna watch that.
Well, Steve or Mr. Wilkos, it has been an honor to talk to you. I really do look up to what you do, and it's really nice to meet somebody that's a straight shooter and seems like a really nice guy. And you guys, like I said, I'm going to post all of the syndicated listings in the show notes. Go support. We don't want to see this guy on Dancing with the Stars. We just want to see him on the Steve Wilkos show. I hope I get to run into you or talk to you again sometime in life, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on.